I would like to welcome you all here today to be with us during Local Government Awareness Week. And you may not be exactly sure what local government is or what it is, but by the time you leave here in an hour, we hope you have a better idea of that. I'm just going to direct your attention. We did have a proclamation of Local Government Week, and you'll see the proclamation up on the screen there. And of course, it's too small, but the pieces of it that are important are reflected in individual slides there. This is important for us today because trying to provide an education and understanding of what we do in local government is really important to the staff here. And I'm particularly pleased today that some members of your city council, who soon we're going to be asking you to do their job for a little while, have joined us today. And I'd like to introduce Councillor Andy Adams, Councillor Claire Mogilev, and Councillor Larry Sampson. And we certainly appreciate them coming up and joining us today. I'd also like to thank the teachers who have been involved in this today in terms of giving you the opportunity to come. And that's Yves Poirier, Ellen Valancourt, and Wayne Demers and Clay Carlson. I believe they're in the audience there. If you can just raise your hands. Thank you very much for participating today. And of course, thanks to all of you, the students who've come and allowed us to give you this opportunity today to tell you a little bit about what we do. So I'm not going to go any further, but I would like to introduce you to someone who will introduce today's guest speaker.
Hi, my name is Kaylee, and today I am pleased to introduce our guest speaker on local government, who I've known my entire life. Jerry Berry is a management consultant and educator, facilitator, and training specializing in local government issues. He currently serves as a faculty member in the Campbell University School of Public Administration and has been a lecturer at the University of Alberta, the University of Victoria, Vancouver Island University, Northwest Community College, and the Banff School of Management. When you first hear of local government, your eyes may roll and you think, wow, that's really boring. But I can certainly tell you that's not the case, and our speaker, Jerry Berry, is here to bring you today alive the active practice of democracy. Please join us in welcoming Mr. Jerry Berry.
Thanks, Kaylee. And before we start with the exercise, I'd like to introduce you to another university professor who's here today. Dana Collette is going to speak to you briefly about the interface between business and government. Dana is a professor at Vancouver Island University, where she teaches in their law program, preparing students just a little bit older than you for business lives and lives in the commercial world and in law. So I'm going to let Dana speak to you about her interest in intersection between what we're going to talk to you about today in government and what she's doing in the business world. Dana?
Okay, I'm not used to a mic. I'm not really going to talk to you too much about what I do where I am. I teach in the business faculty at Vancouver Island University. And what I wanted to do is ask why on earth you're here at 9:15 in the morning. What brought you here? And maybe to segue into that, you could tell me what you're planning to do when you leave home, say. What kind of career do you want? Somebody want to volunteer? Get going? What kind of careers do you want? Does everyone want to just stay at home, kind of continue in high school for the rest of your life? Is it good? Free food? Yeah? What kind of career do you want? You want to be a pilot? What else? Want to fly planes or helicopters? Planes, okay. Who else? Yeah. An electrician? Okay. Yep. Childcare nurse? What else? It's quite a variety so far. Yep. Marine biologist. What else? Yep. Mechanic? What else? There's like no doubling up yet. Yes? Pharmacist? Let's one more. One more. What else? Yep. Mechanic? What else? There's like no doubling up yet. Yes? Pharmacist? Let's one more. One more. Yes?
A stay-at-home dad.
A stay-at-home dad? Yes! That's the most popular one. So tell me if you know, do you have any ideas of what government, say local government, has to do with any of those careers? Pardon me? You could pay the stay-at-home dad? Well, actually, in some jurisdictions in the world, you do actually pay stay-at-home dads, but I don't think ours does so far. Except for the paternal leave part. You actually get to stay at home for a while, but then they boot you back into work if you want a salary. What else does local government have to do with the career? Who wanted to be a mechanic? Who wanted to be a mechanic? Could you just set up a shop to work on cars anywhere in the city, do you think? Does that have anything to do with local government? What do you think it has to do with local government? Yeah, so bylaws that say you can have a house here, you can have that kind of business there, but not necessarily anywhere you want to. What about safety things? Does local government have anything to do with whether or not your house stays together when a fire starts? Or the safety of your customers or clients, your staff? Any of that? So when I think about, I'm here just to be kind of a fly on the wall and watch this because I found out about it and I thought it sounded so exciting because I'm just like that. And it occurred to me that knowing how local government works can really make a difference in your careers, regardless of what you choose, whether you're a stay-at-home parent, whether you're working out and about, because it's wherever you're at, living, working, local government is all about that. And keeping us safe, making things work well, licensing for business, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all I'm going to say. And I hope you have a really great time, and I'm going to watch you have a really great time. Thanks.
Oh, that's a problem. So who here has ever played the video game SimCity? Yeah, quite a few of you. So what we're going to do is play SimCity really today, but it's much harder than you would play on the computer. And there's one reason why it's much harder, and that's this little thing that's central to our civilization and to our quality of life called democracy. So when you play SimCity on the computer, if you fix the streets, you can't pay the firemen. You pay the firemen, you maybe can't provide for good water, et cetera, et cetera. Some of you might have played The Sims, a similar sort of thing. I remember when my daughter was really young and she came to me and she said, oh, now I know why we can't have a hot tub. Social services just took my baby away. It's all about choices. And the reason this is much harder than playing it on the computer is on the computer, you can make your own choice. Mouse click, you decide. In real life, you have to do everything in a shared and collective environment. So the 3 council members are here, can't actually decide anything on city council in Campbell River because there's 7 council members and it takes 4, a majority, to decide anything. And they have to work that out. So the whole function of democracy is in sorting out competing values, hopefully the whole broad range of values, and that comes down to where the money is going to go, which is what we're going to do today. So we're going to do a really accelerated simulation of what happens in your local government here in Campbell River. And what's going to happen is every staff member, there's 10, are going to give you a 1-minute lightning pitch for why you should give your money to them. And you're each going to get 7 $100,000 bills. They're not real $100,000 bills, so don't run out the door. And at the end, you're going to be asked to vote, physically vote, by allocating the money where you think it should go. You can put all 700,000 in land use planning if you think that's more important than anything else. Planning thinks it's more important than anything else. They're good planners, that's why they get to go first. I'll come back to them. Or you can separate the money based on where you think it should go and what you've heard, because people are going to lobby for their self-interest. What you can't do is rip it up. You can't separate it. So you got 7 choices and you can allocate it that way. Everybody understand? Okay, so with that, we are going to start with land use planning. They're going to do 1 minute each, so this is going to be lightning round.
This on? So in Campbell River, we have 13,000 homes, over 2,500 businesses, hundreds of kilometers of trails, and dozens of parks. What land use planning is organizing all of those elements into an amazing and great city. We work with everyone around this table to make sure that we have an amazing city. So we need money to create that function, to organize. So if you know of a place in Campbell River you think sucks, you think it's a horrible place, that's because land use planning didn't have the money to make that a fabulous and exciting place. Our goal is to make this the greatest city in the world. That's land use planning.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming to Council Chambers, where all the decisions are made about your tax dollars. I'm Terry Martin, Environmental Coordinator, and I'm here to talk to you about environmental protection. Now, you're going to hear a lot of great things from my esteemed colleagues today, but make no mistake, if they were left to their own devices, they would log, burn, pave, drain, pipe, and spray everything in the city. There wouldn't be one green thing left. So I'm here to say that with a wise investment of your tax dollar, we can save some of nature. Because as it turns out, nature gives us a lot of goods and services for free. It's the best strategy to combat climate change. It provides habitat for our fish, cleans our air, it filters our water. So please, make sure that you vote with some of your tax dollars. If you want a little bit of green, vote with your green in this box right here. If you want to keep us legal and complying with federal agencies, then put your tax dollars right there. If you want to see us work with various different projects and take the edge off the impact of all these other services, vote here. Thank you.
Thank you very much and welcome. My name's Graham Stewart. I'm the Utilities Supervisor, so I have 2 categories today. I'm going to speak on sewer, and I have Brian McLaughlin here to speak on water. 2 of the big things in the community. She can talk green all she wants, but things are really important. So I'm going to speak just on sewer. We have about 250 kilometers of sewer pipe in our community. We have 15 lift stations and 2 treatment facilities. So to drive home why you want to put all your tax dollars in there, until you leave on your bus, the washrooms are closed in the back, and you won't be able to use any toilets, because unless you pay into my box, that's where it's going to count. So you really want to think about that when you're spending your money today. You can buy green, you can buy nice uniforms, or you can go to the washroom. So I'm going to leave you with one common thing. Don't forget.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Corporal Gord Hay of the Campbell River Arts St. Pete Attachment. Most people look at, as a police, as our job is to arrest people, put them in jail, get them to court. I don't view it that way. Our job is to keep the community safe. If you guys didn't have us around to keep you safe, it would be a lifeless society. You guys would just be rolling around. I know you guys get peeved off every now and again when you see us. We're breaking up parties. We're getting you guys for not having your hands on the back of your cars and everything else. But that is our job. We do have to keep the community safe. We have 53 members in this area that are responsible for the policing in Campbell River, the district of Strathcona, and the 3 Native communities in our area. If you didn't have us, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters, there we go. That's not always the case. We have the training, we have the tools to make the job happen. If we're not there, you guys don't have a lawful society to live within. That's why you need the money to our policing. Thank you.
My name is Michelle Surratt, and I work at the Recreation Department, and we are the least boring of all the departments. We have so much fun, but more than fun and games, we are about the people, and we are the ones that make the quality of life in our city important.
Wouldn't it be great if we had a place to hang out? What would it be like if we didn't have the sportsplex, the community center, the disc golf course, or the pool, or the skate park? Where would we go? What would we do? These facilities help youth become people that they may not know they are, and they give youth opportunities to become people and have opportunities that they have never had before. The Recreation Department promotes a healthy, active lifestyle, helps support recreation.
Good morning, my name is Melissa and I work in the Transportation Department. I'm going to start by asking everyone a very simple question, and that's, how did you get to school this morning? On 3, I want everyone to yell it out, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I heard a lot of by buses. I was hoping you would tell me how you got to school this morning and not from school to here, but I think you could also have said by car, you could have said walking, biking, you could have said running if you're running a little bit late, you could have said by skateboard. All of those are modes of transportation, and it's my job to make sure you can go as safely and efficiently from point A to point B. So I want you to think about today. First thing in the morning you were at home, and then you went to school. Now you're here at City Hall. After this you're going to go back to school, then you're going to go back home, and in the evening you might go out to see a friend or see a movie, or to the sportsplex or the community center. Every time you go from point to point to point, you're going to use the city's transportation network. So we need your money to build and maintain that transportation network. These are our roads, our sidewalks, our bike lanes, our bike routes, our bus stops, our bus shelters, our parking lots, and our airport, our traffic lights and our traffic signs. You use the transportation system every day, so please spend some money on it. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, my name is Brian, and I work in the water department, and I'm here just to talk to you about our drinking water. Quickly, though, just a little bit of participation, a little show of hands. How many people used water this morning? Okay, pretty much everybody, right? So you see where I'm going with this. Safe, clean, potable drinking water is essential for our quality of life, and it's very important in our daily lives. But where does the water come from? And how do you know, most of all, that it's safe to consume? Well, that's our job. So we take the water out of John Hart Lake, we treat it with chlorine gas and ultraviolet light, and we kill all the viruses and bacteria in the water, and we make it safe. Then we transport it through about 300 kilometers of underground pipe, and we send it to all of your homes, your schools, the hospital, and everywhere else in the city. So make no mistake, and just understand that the availability of clean and potable drinking water is essential to our personal health and the health of our community. And a well-funded water system is the greatest way to ensure that for the future. Thank you.
Don't forget all that water in the cup.
But it doesn't flow without water.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Lynn, and I work for you in parks. We need your tax dollars, and that's no lark. With over 50 parks, kilometers of trails, community sports fields, and cemetery burials, we do plenty of mowing, tree pruning, and planting to keep you super active or chilling and relaxing. Whether visiting McIver Lake or riding at the skate park, blading along the seawalk, or playing ball after dark, the parks crew needs to be there providing all the labor and making sure that parks are preserved for you and all your neighbors. I know you love our parks, but you're not the only ones. There are plenty of birds and animals who without them would be glum. If you want to protect the planet and have great spaces to play, then spend your tax dollars on parks right here, right now, today.
Good morning. I'm Ian Bakey, your fire chief. I'm here to tell you the value of your fire service. Your fire service protects you and provides services when you have problems in your life. We do that with 20 people working for you on a shift pattern downtown at the main station, manning a truck properly to respond 24/7, and with 50 volunteers based there and at our number 2 fire station in Willow Point. Our goal is to be at your doorstep in 6 to 10 minutes to help you with whatever might be giving you trouble, whether that's a fire or a need for rescue, whether that's just to understand why you've got an alarm going off with a CO detector or a gas or a smoke detector. We're there to help, and we do it 2,500 times a year. We come out and help the citizens of our community, providing whatever services they require to make their lives better. That is an expensive process with staff and equipment and infrastructure that we need to maintain to be at the ready. And I ask you to support your fire department in providing excellent service to your community. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Amber Zernhelt, and I'm the Sustainability Manager, and I actually look after solid waste as well for the city. That means your garbage and recycling. How many of you put something in your garbage can or your recycling bin today or yesterday? Show of hands. Wow, so that looks like everybody. Can you imagine our community without garbage collection? Did you know that floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean right now, there is a garbage patch, basically an island full of plastic that is twice the size of Texas? Can you imagine if we didn't have garbage or recycling service in our communities? Imagine how much worse that would be. Imagine the impact for the environment. And imagine how stinky your neighborhood would be if your neighbor's garbage wasn't collected. Oh man. And did you know that recycling is the cool thing to do? In fact, studies have shown that most girls in college, and yes, this is a tip for you guys out there, most girls in college and university will not even go on a first date with a guy if he doesn't recycle. So, and not only do we do garbage and recycling, we do yard waste and all kinds of waste reduction tips, so put your money in garbage and recycling. Thank you.
We're all done? Thank you. Take it. Okay, now we get to do the fun part. So one of the things that this simulation's different, and the council members here are all thinking, gee, I wish I could do this. You now get to make your choice based on your personal preferences and the arguments that you've heard, without any history, without any restrictions. They would love to be able to be in that situation. It's a little more complicated than that. But for you today, for this exercise, we're going to see where you'd really like this money to go. And we're now going to open up the floor, which is great because you don't normally get to be on this floor unless you actually are brave enough to put your name up and stand for election. So this is serious stuff, which we're trying to make a little bit fun. You get to vote now. Go ahead. You can come on down. Of course, but you still got things like collective agreements and past history where you can't just start from...
Places. Hi. I don't like water, actually. I like you look again. Thank you. I love the other wet. I like both sides. Hi, Casey. How's it going? Good, how are you? Going against the flow. I like transit. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Has everyone had a chance to vote? So one of the other functions of local government is to ensure fair and impartial elections. So Graham, the sewer guy, when he was going around and trying to block other guys' boxes from voting, that's not on. We don't allow that to happen. Anybody got any left? So we're now going to take this outside and do the calculation on what you voted. And I now want to talk to you a little bit about where you're heading off. So who here is in grade 12? Nobody in grade 12? You're grade 11, grade 10? Okay. So I want to talk to you about, you're close to going out into the world. I want to talk to you about this leap off and make a passionate plea for you to get involved in your government and your local government, because we need the involvement from young people in terms of setting the course for the future. This is Campbell River, of course, and we're going to be talking about Campbell River today, but you're unique just like everybody else. Every local government in Canada, and there's 4,600, just cities and municipalities, towns and villages, if you don't include other local governments like school boards, 4,600, and every one of them is going through a process like this. The finance chairman was talking to me about, well, we actually do a strategic planning process to organize this. And of course, wouldn't they like it if they could actually do their whole budget in 20 seconds like you just did, very orderly. So there is a long, involved process. The reason I want to talk about Campbell River and these other 4,600 cities is you may not realize that before there was a Canada, before there were any provinces, before there were any territories, there were cities. Cities, they like to call themselves the senior governments, but the local governments are actually the senior governments because of all the reasons that you heard here before. So does anybody think of anything that the federal government did for you this morning that you can think of? Anybody from Quadra here? They might have done navigation. Anybody think of anything the provincial government did for you this morning? But you could probably think of some things that the local government did for you this morning after that presentation. So we're going to talk about cities, and we're going to talk about communities. We're going to talk about the future, which you are. And the premise of local government is that all of us together are more capable than people individually. It's just really, really simple. We have to do things through collective action, and that's why cities were first, because things like this, public health and sanitation, require collective action. So everybody used the bathroom this morning, I hope? So you did use your local government, and central to that is water, probably more important than anything else. I've recently had the chance to travel to Africa twice. It's pretty amazing. You go camping, you have to pack your water up from the river or the lake. Pretty amazing where you see people packing it every day for miles and miles and miles. We're pretty fortunate. You had breakfast this morning? Requires local government. Somebody shook their head, no breakfast. So you weren't producing any garbage this morning, but garbage and recycling. It's funny, this comment about dating. My daughter has just got married and moved to the States, and she's quite appalled because she can't find any recycling. Not everybody is on the same sort of stage that we are in Canada. And you got to school this morning by some means. And school itself is a local government. There is a school board, just like there's a city council, which is duly elected, which makes decisions about your schooling. So what we've been talking about is that one of the fundamental structures, one of the fundamental purposes of local government is to provide services to property. But that's by far the minor element. It's minor because you could run a sewer system without a government. Some places they do. Some places they run fire departments that are private fire departments without a government. The key issue is that there's two purposes of local government, and the first and foremost is to be a democracy, to allow collective decision making and to allow change. And change is happening at a more and more rapid pace, and I'm worried for you that there are changes that are going to make for a sustainable future. So this is recent newspaper coverage that suggests that Canadians are losing faith in democracy. That should be of concern to all of us. And one of the central elements of democracy, of course, is being able to vote. So in the provincial election that was just last week, only 52% of the eligible electors voted. In municipal elections, on average, It's only 30%. That's really, really scary to me. Really, really scary, because unless all voices are involved in decision making, those voices' concerns and values aren't necessarily represented in the outcomes. And you might see some of that when the votes come back. What's even more concerning to me is we don't have good data on this, but if you're 18 in British Columbia, you can vote. This 30% and this 52% for sure will be severely underrepresented for young people. It's old gray guys like myself. And old gray guys like myself are going to make decisions that suit old gray guys like myself. That's not necessarily good for you. It's an argument why people need to be involved. And the fact that you're here today is just wonderful, because increasingly younger people haven't been involved in voting and democracy. This is an American commentary suggesting that younger voters do care again. It's around the whole Obama thing, etc. I just put this in here because I'd like to hope that younger voters do care again and will get involved, because that's the way to change the system. And we talked about protective services. One of the things that local governments do that's fundamental to democracy is things like rule of law, due process, are things that we just absolutely take for granted. So rule of law means everybody's equal before the law. Due process means you get rights to hearings, etc., guarantees under charters and various instruments of law. And we think that that's kind of universal, but it isn't. In large parts of the world, that doesn't exist. Where they don't have democracy at all. Where they can't vote. I chose this picture because I think these women look quite modern looking. They're not wearing burqas, but they don't have the right to vote. So my argument to you is, when so many people in the world are desperate for the right to vote and don't have democracy, it's a bit insulting, I think, and dangerous when we don't exercise that right. And I put this in here particularly for the women and also for the men, to think about how far we've come and why it's so disrespectful and troubling not to have full engagement. Women in Canada weren't even persons until 1900 in the law. You weren't considered persons. You didn't have the right to vote till 1917 federally, and in some provinces women didn't have the right to vote till 1940. Now, at your age, that might seem a long time ago. 1940 is yesterday. And the reason I put these pictures in is this didn't come about easily. These women, as you can see here, are not having a polite discussion about voting. They're being attacked merely for wanting to be persons and having the right to vote. So I wanted to put that up before you to say this is why it's really important that people exercise their right. Additionally, in Canada, you might be surprised to know that if you were First Nations, if you were certain races, if you were certain religions, you couldn't vote until the 60s. I was your age then, and First Nations didn't have the right to vote. Also very scary because we want full involvement in decision making. So SimCity we talked about. Talked a little bit about the issue of collective solutions and why it's so important to have everybody involved. And one of the things that I want to impress upon you about councils, because this isn't well understood, is that every council member representing different points of view and hopefully the whole spectrum of values is equal. The mayor has one vote on council in Canada. It's a little different in the States in lots of places, and each council member has one vote, and hopefully they act with shared respect and shared power. But it makes it much harder. You can imagine how much harder it is in SimCity if you have to decide amongst 7 people on every decision. Now, why I'm concerned for you is that there isn't a local government in Canada that's actually sustainable, financially, environmentally, culturally, socially, because we're operating on old systems. This is the United Nations in the Brundtland Commission. Some of you that are interested in environment or marine biology might know that the Brundtland Commission is the seminal body that talked about sustainability. It's the definition of sustainability we use. So way back in 1987, before most of you were born, right? They said what local governments need is access to funds, political power, and personnel to local levels which are best positioned to make local decisions. So that's, before you were born, the UN was saying that's what we needed. We don't have that in Canada. In Canada, only 8 cents of every dollar of taxation goes to local government. When you pay PST on your Slurpee today, GST, or whatever they're doing at the moment, none of that goes to local government. Only property taxes go to local government, and there's one reason that that should concern you greatly. I'm going to come back to that. In most cities, these three areas, protective services, parks and recreation, culture, and public works, take up 75 to 85% of the budget. And that's my reference to fixed costs. A lot of costs have developed over time, and that basic stuff has to be looked after before you can get onto some of the more sexy stuff like recreation, etc. And this whole discussion is really about change and your role in it as you go off into the world soon. We have aging citizens, we have aging systems, and we have aging infrastructure in Canada. In addition, the world's a lot more difficult than it was when I was young. One of the fundamental issues that we have is that we have a property tax system that was created when Queen Victoria was a little girl. Our property tax system, which is the only source of revenue for local governments, was designed way back in 1864, and it hasn't changed one bit since. So things like pulp mills, and this is a picture of your pulp mill being closed, used to be under the system that was developed 200 years ago, that things that produced, remember in the industrial age or just prior to the Industrial Revolution, things that produced things were valued highly. So pulp mills and things paid a huge amount of tax. Houses paid a huge amount of tax if they got bigger. Now, as we're dealing with intellectual property and creativity and a whole new approach to communications and wealth generation, local governments don't necessarily tax that. So you could have a multi-million-dollar computer company just down the street here, and they might be a good corporate citizen and they might contribute to community, or they might not. There's no way to capture that money. There's no way to make them a contributor to local government, and that's a potential problem. And it's going to be a problem for your generation. The other problem about that tax system is it means that local governments are addicted to growth, because the only way they get new money is by building new things. And on Vancouver Island and lots of places, anybody been to Calgary recently and see the houses spreading out to the mountain? That's because in the short term, cities get money by building more buildings. But it's a very, very, very inefficient and very environmentally insensitive way to approach things. And you end up with stuff like this. Not very environmentally attractive, not very socially attractive, not very culturally attractive, and very, very, very expensive because it's very low density. So your generation is the generation I hope will push with the land use planners to help councils to do things like densification and infilling of properties and urban containment boundaries and all sorts of stuff we could talk about for hours and hours, which is all basically a part of protecting our environment for the future. Now, that's not to say there isn't lots of good growth, and that's why if you're interested in this, we can talk to you for a long time, and the planners can, about ways we could do things better. We could provide a lot better services. So if Campbell River was a little node with the entire population in a square mile downtown, think of the schools and the cultural facilities and the recreation facilities, think of the transit opportunities, and the rest of the city would be park. Much, much cheaper to run, but it has some implications. Probably means that you couldn't have single-family housing. These are the kind of trade-offs I'm talking about. Okay, one of the challenges for the future for you is the Great Canadian Infrastructure Challenge. I put this picture up of City Hall with things falling off. It looks kind of pretty, but under the surface, things are happening. The one I chose here to just, because when people talk, you might hear in the news about the $2 billion infrastructure deficit in Canada. One of the problems is that a lot of this stuff that's under the surface that is fundamental to our quality of life, like sewer and water, is under the surface. So people think it's looked after and it isn't. This is from the provinces of BC's estimate for 2011 of the number of water systems that would meet safe drinking standards. Their hope is that they get to 36%. Did any of you know that 2/3 of the water systems in BC don't meet safe drinking water systems? Safe drinking water standards? I bet nobody knew that. And people that aren't in local government don't know that. But just before I started, there was a tweet from CTV this morning, and they have Montreal on a boiled water advisory this morning. 700,000 people required to boil water because it's not considered safe. So that's pretty sobering, and if we want to fix that in the future, we need your help. Here's the other reason that things are changing for local government. This is our medical health officer for Vancouver Island in Nanaimo in December, and he says, local government has more to do with closing the gap in life expectancy than the health system does. Health across the board is affected by factors such as air quality as well as other environmental and social factors, many of which municipalities exert significant influence over. So that's really important, and when you think about it, you may not realize that, back on Graham and sewers, that municipal sewer systems have saved more people than doctors ever have. The sewers in London and the sewers in Paris, which are the first sewers in the year, came out of cholera and those kind of epidemics. We take it for granted, and one of the things I want to leave you with today is that it's very dangerous to take that stuff for granted, and not voting because you're taking it for granted is a way to make it a problem. So in the end, local government's fundamentally responsible for our quality of life, Mother Nature, the environment, and for health. And that's why you need to be involved. And we're not going to solve the problems that we have by thinking about them the way we got into them, which is what old guys like me tend to do. We need some new creativity from young people and young minds. One of the first things that has to happen is a recognition that there's never going to be enough money. There's always more things to do than we're ever going to have enough money for. So we have to make choices, just like you did this morning in the exercise. It would be nice to be able to give maximum money to every function. It's not possible. So we have to make choices, and we have to have a system that makes choices. And the system will make the right choices the more people we have involved. We have to do a better job of aligning beneficiaries with costs and adequately considering temporal equity. One of the problems with democratic systems, when I talk about temporal equity, I mean about equity over time. So there's a great tendency for local governments to do, or all governments, to do what they're being asked of today and spend money that won't be available for tomorrow. So this is why I'm very concerned about not having young people involved, because those decision makers, I'm not going to, except for maybe my grandkids or because I'm being altruistic, I'm not going to care about what's happening 30 years from now. It won't matter to me, but you will. And local government's really, really slow. Really slow. It's like this supertanker. You can turn the supertanker, but it requires a couple of things. It requires a lot of time. It requires knowledge of where you want to be way before you get there. It requires somebody to set the new course, and once you set the new course, it requires a lot of power to hold the wheel over for a long time. So my argument for you is, if you want to see the world that you want to live into when you're my age, 30 years from now, 30, 40 years from now, you have to start now. Because supertankers can't stop quickly. They can't turn on a dime. That's just the nature of our system. Democracy involves consultation. That all takes time. So if we want the world that you want 40 years from now, you need to get involved now. And you are part of the solution, because change will occur. It's just a question of how it'll come to us. You can affect that. Pretty simple, eh? So that's sobering, I hope, because I want you to think seriously about how you can play a role in the future as you move ahead in terms of determining the course for the world that you want to see. And it really is the world. all these little local decisions. There's a book called Global Paradox that talks about how the world really, with globalization, every little smaller entity now becomes important in a world sense. So cities are important. The other thing I want to talk to you about by way of finishing here is that I've spent 35 years in local government and I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great career for me, and I'd like to suggest to you that it's a possible career for you. And one of the things that we're having difficulties in local government is getting people to understand that this is an exciting and a worthwhile career path. So this is a site that exists in Canada. It actually started in BC called Civic Jobs. So if you're interested in a job in local government, and one of the interesting things about local government you haven't probably thought about is that there's every possible job in the world that are under local governments. Everything from health researchers and doctors down to squash teachers, recreation programmers, dog walkers, everything in between. Thousands and thousands of jobs across the whole spectrum. So it's a career that most people don't think about, but you should. Here's a site dedicated to that. There's a site in BC called Civic Info BC, and every week they come out with jobs, so you can be thinking about this for the future. In this particular weekly posting, there's 154 jobs posted. And that's what it's like every week. And they can't get people. So it's something to think about. And it's such a problem that certain cities, certain big sophisticated cities, have actually taken on some quite sophisticated recruiting programs. This is the city of Calgary, and they have a program called The City Works for Me, You at the City, and the whole program is about trying to attract people to work in local government because they can't get enough good people. So if I was in high school looking forward in this environment, I'd be pretty impressed that here's a whole sector where they're actually desperately looking for people. Something to think about. So I don't know where we are. We're ready or we're not ready? We're ready. Okay, so we're going to load up the results and then I'll come back to you for any questions. Great, thank you very much. What this is showing is the 2013 budget, which has been concluded or about to be concluded. Is it concluded, you guys? Yeah, so it's concluded by council, and this is their weighting and allocation of funding from the taxpayers. And you can see the pie chart covers all elements. But in the three big elements that I talked about, you can see that operations, which is public works, sewer, water, etc., 50%, protective services, 34%, parks and recreation, 16%. So that's the current allocation based on the council's strategic planning and their deliberations over the year, past history, all those elements that go into it. So if we can show what you guys have chosen. So, in the corner, you can see the allocations, 63%, 24%, and 13%, and the differential. So operations is up 13% over what was actually allocated by council. I suspect a large part of that is about environmental sensitivity, which if I was your age, I'd be very concerned about. So that's good. One of the things that indicates to me is why it's so important to have younger people involved in the process, because values are different on different biases, etc. And we need all of those voices involved in the debate. Protective services is down 10% over what the current costs are. Now, one of the things, if we were having a discussion about all the details, is that the council's discretion on protective services in terms of funding is essentially zero. Very little degrees of freedom in terms of changing costs on either fire or police. So who thinks the RCMP is federal? Of course, they're a federal police force. But in Campbell River and every other city the size of Campbell River, 90% of the costs come from local government. Parks and recreation, down 3%. So that's very close. Very close. So the big changes are between operations and protective services. That's very similar to what we saw last year, I would say, with younger generation, and not unexpected. Any comments from anyone here about that allocation? The police think it's all the fire that's down, and the fire think it's all the police, by the way. We'd have to spread that. We'd have to break that out. They're nodding. We'd have to break that out. So I think that's really, really interesting, and I think it does really illustrate why we need every voice involved in the discussion. If we did a bunch of seniors here in this room, we'd get a different allocation again. And council's job, which is a tough job, I'm not brave enough to do it, is to try to figure out those competing needs. Because usually what happens is this chamber is people come in here and they say, I want, oh, but I don't want to pay more taxes. And they usually say that at the same time. So that's a tough job for council to sort out. Okay, so that's very interesting to me. Can I ask for any questions? Can I respond to any questions? Who knew that women couldn't vote in parts of Canada till 1940? You did? That's excellent that you know that. Scary to me. That's excellent that you know that. Questions? We've set everybody very sober this morning. Okay, so while you're thinking of questions, I'm going to ask you a question. So why is local government like kids and ice cream? Why is local government like kids and ice cream? This is one of the challenges for council. Because we have a role in helping council to make decisions, and part of council's decision, I would argue, for the future is about setting values for the future, but people want what they want now. So local government's like kids and ice cream, because if my house with 2 kids was a local representative democracy, we'd have ice cream every meal. And my wife or your mom would be sitting there saying food groups and vegetables and, you know, eat your broccoli. And we'd say, to hell with that. 3-1, we want ice cream. And who elected you mom anyway? Right? So that's a really tough job for council, because it's hard to get elected saying, actually, we need to talk about low-fat sorbet, or we need to talk about ice cream once or twice a week. Lots of people want to elect people that say, I'll give you ice cream every meal. But that wouldn't be good for you, would it? So that's one of the delinks in representative democracy, and why we need more informed involvement. Because somebody who gives you ice cream every meal is not helping you. They might be helping you in the moment, they might be making you happy on the moment, but they're not dealing with that temporal equity issue. So that's something you can think about. Any questions? Yes, sorry. Hi.
Hi. So I don't have a question, but I just wanted to let you guys know that if you're kind of sitting there wondering, okay, how do I get involved? I'm in grade 10, grade 11, you know, how can I make a difference when it comes to city council and the decisions? Just wanted to let you know that my name is Leah, and Amber, who you met before, we help run a committee called YAC, or the Youth Action Committee. How many people have heard of that? Yeah. So the Youth Action Committee, what we do is we're a group of students, and Amber and I are the city liaisons, and we work with them on giving feedback to community groups, to city managers, to council about different city projects. So you guys can actually have a voice and come to council and speak to them. One of the big things that the Youth Action Committee did over the past couple of years was work on a youth engagement strategy. And we're super excited to let you know that the youth engagement strategy was adopted by council unanimously. And it talks about how youth should have a say in Campbell River. They support the Youth Action Committee, and that it will continue throughout the years, but also that the city managers and council will actively pursue youth of Campbell River's opinions, because you make up 10% of the population. So if you want to get involved, we will be recruiting more people for that committee come the fall. So the applications come to your schools, and you can also contact myself. I'm with the Recreation Department, or Amber with the Sustainability Department, and we can get you involved and allow you to feel a part of the community.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, and I would go on from that saying that there's any number of ways to be involved. It doesn't have to be a committee. This is a great approach. I would like to challenge you all to think about in the next municipal elections. It's going to be next year, right? Next year. You won't be able to vote, but you can be informed. You can find out what's on. These, as you can see, these three council members, the three council members put their hands up. They're not really very scary. One of the things I always hear about, there's the old joke about you can't fight City Hall, but in my 35 years of experience, in fact, all council members in general are very, very sincere about wanting to do their best for the community, and they're more than happy to talk to people. So one of the things you can do is talk to them and find out some of the issues, read the paper, and be thinking again to the next local government election, which wherever you end up, is going to be, there's going to be another local government election in BC in 4 years, or you may be in other parts of Canada. I'd like to see you all voting in that. Because not voting means that your voice isn't going to be included in the decisions. Okay? So there's everything from pure voting right up to involvement to committees to, in fact, in Nanaimo, I'm still proud to say that the youngest council member ever elected in British Columbia was on a council that I served in Nanaimo. He was so young that he couldn't go to the bar afterwards because he wasn't of age, which was cool. And he was a great contributor to that council. Great contributor. Sir. Thank you. Thank you. I'll just leave it with Andy, but it really is no effort for us. We're not me here in this council chambers, but in council chambers all over British Columbia. They're there every week, and they want to serve you, and they want people there, so they're more than happy to do it. Andy.
Thanks, Jerry. And again, we wanted to thank you all for coming out today to join us for Local Government Awareness Week. Special appreciation to your teachers. I think you can see how important this is to us today in terms of education. You can see the fact that members of council have come out to join us today, that they've recognized that youth education in terms of this issue is important. And I would like to thank Jerry. It's the second year he's done this as a volunteer, and in particular our committee and all the staff who made the presentations today, because they've taken some effort to do this on your behalf. So again, thank you very much for coming, and we hope to do this again next year. And if you can talk to other students about if you thought this was cool, that would be great, because we want to get you back. Thank you very much for coming out today, and we appreciate it.